This is Donna, and we are live in Cincinnati, Ohio at Lori Foster's Reader and Author Get Together. And I am here with Tina, who has just had an amazing book signing.
So much fun.
Her table was packed the entire time. And so she'll also be signing tomorrow, though, again, from 3 to 5 in Cincinnati. So, Tina, tell us a little bit about yourself and your books.
Okay, well, I'm from Louisiana. I was born and raised in New Orleans, and now I live a little ways outside, not very far actually, but I live down the bayou. I spent 30 years as a broadcast journalist, and so what I always loved fiction writing, and when I was a child I used to write. Always say when I got a crayon in my hand I started writing, and I did illustrations for my own stories, that sort of thing. But when it was time to actually choose a profession, I didn't even think that that was a possibility. But I love sports, so I became a sportscaster. So that's what I did initially, and then a journalist and so forth, and then eventually there were such great rich stories that I embellished in my head of things that happened. When I was a reporter, I didn't do that, though. Let's just get that straight. But so that's kind of where it went. And so my stories are primarily set right now. I have some others coming from different locations, but in South Louisiana, Elli, Jewel, and Abby right now, the first 3 in the series of Second Chance
and
novels.
We have Elli.
Yeah.
I love the dog on it. We're a bunch of dog lovers.
And I actually donate all my proceeds from this. I get donated to unmet needs for cancer. Depends on what place I do it to. Usually it's at the cancer center where I'm a breast cancer survivor, so usually goes there. But if I'm traveling, often I'll find an organization or a group that I think I'd like to donate to. So that's what I do with Elli, and then Jewel and Abby come from that story. And it's just, it was fun to write. Really helped me through chemo. I wrote it during chemo, so I did have chemo brain for this, so it was well edited afterwards.
Wow, that's awesome. And I've noticed, like, sometimes when you travel for events, you'll also go and speak.
Yes, I do. I love doing public speaking, and it's just something that's in my heart. And if I get invited, I'm just so honored to be invited, and I just really enjoy it.
That's good. So this would have been a story you didn't have growing up and as a sportscaster. So do you have a lot more stories yet to write?
I do. So besides the Second Chance novel series, I love Colorado. I have to tell you, I just absolutely love it. It is such a departure from Louisiana, where we're flat. It's beautiful, flat green, mossy, bayou. And then these jutting, beautiful, majestic mountains of Colorado. So, and it's cool. The weather is just great. So I have a series from Cloud Hill is the name of the series. At Christmas at the Inn in Cloud Hill is a little novella I wrote to begin. And then the others are going to be 4 seasons of 4 sisters. So that'll be coming out in 2019. Before that, I have a historical Western. Okay, no basis in anything in my life other than that I traveled to Virginia City, and I was with author Heather Graham, and we were walking through the city. We spent an hour or more in the cemetery. I'm sorry people died, certainly, get all that. But it was just so rich in history, and it just called me. And also author Maggie Osborne is one of my favorite reads, and she wrote historical westerns.
Oh, so is it hard to skip from one genre to another?
No, the hard part is, research is hard, because I want to get it right, and that's part of my journalist. I have to source everything. I double source everything. So, if a particular type of flower grew in a region, I double source it to make sure, because really on the internet sources where you do most of your research now, you don't know who's putting it up, if they really true, So the research is harder with historicals, and I hope one day, if it continues, and I'm still feeling those stories and loving it, they'll become easier for me. Wild Horses of Nevada, because it's set in Nevada, it's so fascinating. But to look at the date, like they actually began having these wild horses, is it relevant to the dates of my story? And it could be just off by 2 or 3 years. There was a huge fire in Virginia City, but it's 1 year after my book is set. So, there's like little references like that. So that's a little different, because you're dealing with some real and some fictional, and so it becomes a little bit harder.
That's awesome.
But it's fun.
So I was going to ask you, so for Elli, would you also recommend it for someone going through cancer?
Well, Elli is a survivor, so there is something universal about, it's not just people that go through breast cancer, but it's through any kind of cancer, any kind of tragedy, or any kind of other medical problem. Somebody might have a chronic heart disease. I find that you kind of have the same kind of journey about your mortality, about what's the meaning of life, what is my legacy, who will remember me if this isn't going to be, so Elli is beyond cancer at this point. She's been cancer-free for about 3 years, and so yes, I think it's a good story to read because it's of hope, but it's also real feelings. And I do each chapter start with a blog post that Elli did while she was going. Yeah, blog post, and that she did while she was going through cancer. So we kind of have a reference point, and it's usually relevant to that chapter. So. Yeah, I would recommend it, but just know it's not a cancer book. It's not what that is, but it's Elli's journey, and it's, the struggles, but, the permanence, that issue of permanence.
Yeah. Well, and our mortality. I mean, that's,
yes.
Yeah. So,
but it's funny. I say that, but I know that's the thing. Is I write with humor, so, it's so, yeah.
So I was going to say, what do you want us to know about surviving cancer?
That you can. I think that's the biggest thing, that you can survive it. Your journey is your journey. Your feelings are your feelings, and you're entitled to them. Don't think that just, I'm being weak and I'm being silly, and you feel bad and guilty for feeling those things, but you have a right to feel them. I had a dear friend that told me that one time. It's like, oh, it's ridiculous. There's people that are not surviving. I'm surviving. I'm complaining because of the aches and pains from the medicines or the side effects, and I have no right. And she says, you have every right to feel what you feel. And I think that was a little bit of freedom. And no, yes, I do. I have no right to be, I have a right to be depressed, but I have every right to be hopeful too. So you have a right to your feelings, but you also have the converse right to being hopeful.
Wow, very good. All right, so let's switch gears for just a second and talk about the conference. So like, what would you recommend for readers and for authors who come to a conference like this?
Well, this is my first RAGT, so I'm loving it. Each conference has its own little vibe. I think what you need to do is figure out, you come and you need to know what you love. I think the biggest joy for most everyone is meeting each other. Readers love to meet authors, but authors love to meet readers. So I think you find those opportunities, you look for those opportunities. Some people love getting free books. Some people just like meeting new authors and learning of them to get a new author to read, which is kind of fun. It's fun to talk about your books to someone that really likes to read, and it's really fun as a reader to talk to the author because you love to read. So I think the opportunity always at a conference, meet the authors, meet the readers. That's really where the joy, I think, of the fun is. Worry about sleeping later.
Yeah, because I can imagine everybody's exhausted. They start at 7 in the morning, and that's if you're not setting up the room, and then we go to like 11 at night. So it's
fun.
Yeah,
it's fun. Just rest before you come, rest when you go home. Don't worry about it.
So I noticed on your website that each of your books you kind of have a theme.
I do.
And so, do you have the theme like before you start writing it, and then?
Yes. I know my character. My books are about my heroines primarily, but the heroes also have their struggles. But I plot with some amazing authors, and when we plot together, we sit down and we always say, this is the hero's book, or this is the heroine's book. So I know that there's a message, a deep message that the hero, or something the heroine needs to discover. The hero too, I also have that, and it's not always the same thing. But so I do start a book knowing what it is that they need to discover about themselves to bring them the joy and to allow themselves to open up to love and to a new experience. So yeah, I always know. So I also know like scenes. Like I have scenes in my head. Like, oh, this is so funny. I'm going to do this, and I don't know what it means and how it's going to come, but I just know that those characters need to do that. I had a donut run in the middle of the night with Ton Izzy, who's an 80-plus-year-old firecracker, Cajun firecracker, and she picks up the heroin to go get donuts. But that became a meaningful thing, and she's like in her pajamas, is like, you know what? She's get in the car, and she gets in the car. What are you doing? She says, the light's on at the donut shop. They just have some fresh donuts. Let's go get some donuts, you know. But on their journey there, it taught her something. She learned a little bit more, you know, and it layers those characters and lets them learn a little bit about themselves, or, you know, in either a good way or a bad way. You know? She discovered she liked chocolate glazed donuts. So,
especially when they're hot and the lights on.
She went another night on her own.
What is something that readers might be surprised to learn about you?
That I was a play-by-play announcer. I started out as a sportscaster, and I am the first, that we can figure out, first Louisiana female play-by-play announcer for football. So yeah, I used to call, you know, I was the one that was on. We had the TV, and then had a color analysis. This great guy that was a coach. His name was Coach Stahl, and he was just, you know, amazing. And he taught me so much. You know, he used words and made up words. Oh, I put the whooping docker to him and things like that. So yeah, that's kind of something that, you know, most people don't even know. I was like, what?
So you grew up like just loving sports?
I did, and I think it goes back to my father. My father used to lay in the bedroom, and we had one TV in the house, and so he would lay in his bed with his radio, little small radio, and be listening to the game. And I would go and lay with him, and we'd listen to the game together and talk about it. So it was kind of a, you know, a daddy-daughter moment kind of thing, and we would talk sports. So it was, you know, and I just liked it. I just really liked the game. It's fun.
Very good. All right. Oh, and that's my Aunt Liz.
Hi, Aunt Liz.
Hey. Oh, she and my mom are best friends. I'm glad she's on there. Well, we're about to end our live interview, and we're going to record something for the blog post. So you want to jump over there in about a week, and we will have that up. But you won't want to miss it. It's been great being with Tina.
And I'll bring some of my people over there for that. So we'll get to meet each other. Let's talk.
Bye.